you do want to evaluate, do you want to grow that seed again? Is it significant for any reason that you want to steward that seed for another generation in the future? And if you don't, that might be something that you phase out so you have room to bring in a new variety into your fields. Welcome to the Seed Farmer Podcast, the podcast where I want you to harvest seeds from some of the vegetables and flowers growing in your farm or garden, and then to plant that seed out to grow delicious vegetables and beautiful flowers. If you enjoy the Seed Farmer Podcast and find it is a good resource that helps you improve your seed work and farming, please support the show at spreadsheet.farm/supportpodcast. I'm your host, Dan Brisebois, seed grower at Tournesol Cooperative Farm and author of The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seeds. Today is part 3 of the Season Review Challenge. Review your sales channels. But first, let's do some news. I want to start by wishing you a belated happy Spreadsheet Day. Because we've been recording a couple weeks in advance, I didn't realize that this episode would come out after October 17, Spreadsheet Day, the day that VisiCalc was first released in 1979. So happy 46th birthday to spreadsheets being available for everyday folks and farmers. I can only imagine the fun you've had all weekend dressing up the kids in their cute little spreadsheet outfits and ampersand-shaped balloons. I know we had a great time. So anyway, sorry about being late on those well wishes. Let's talk about what's going on at Tournesol. This week, we just harvested the winter radishes and turnip roots that will be seed next year. So the first year of a biennial seed, kind of like what we talked about a couple episodes ago. These roots were sown right around the first week of August, and they've been growing ever since under row cover. And now I have peeked at them a little bit, and I finally got to harvesting them last week. The radishes would have been good to harvest maybe a week earlier, but for some just life stuff, it wasn't possible to get into the field that week. But we've harvested them now. Now, the turnips that we harvested were some big white Tokyo market turnips. These look a little bit like Hakurei, and we've been considering them as a Hakurei alternative in our seed catalog. Hakurei turnip, for those who don't know, is a classic that a lot of market growers grow, that we offer through our CSA baskets and that clients really love. And then they ask me where they can get the seed, and I say, it's a hybrid, so we can't grow it out. And Tokyo Market is a pretty similar looking and tasting white turnip, has just a touch more of that turnip taste to it, but it still is pretty mild and sweet. And so we got some seed from Adaptive Seeds a couple years ago, and we've been growing it out, trialing it, and now we actually did get one seed crop that we're releasing this year, and we're doing an even bigger seed crop next year, and the roots look really beautiful. So we harvested those roots, as I was saying last week, from the moment I'm recording this, which is a couple weeks earlier than the moment you're listening to it. And now those are in 40-pound bags in the cold room, ready for next year. The winter radishes are part of my kaleidoscope breeding project. I've been doing a lot of winter radish work over the last 15, 17 years. And some of the work that I do, I'm really looking for uniformity, trying to get especially black rinds on the outside and then purple or red on the inside. And I am trying to get at a population that is fairly stable. Now, the kaleidoscope project is actually something where I'm really looking for diversity. The one thing I'm looking for uniformity-wise is I've crossed up some green luobo radish into this, which is kind of a longer, skinny one, not quite as long as a daikon, but like an elongated cylindrical radish. And that's the one thing. I want all these radishes to have that shape, so I'm eliminating anything that's too round. Otherwise, I'm just all kinds of colors, especially multicolor on the outside. So I have some that, have purple and green and white and a little bit of red on the outside. I'm just trying to get a lot of different color in there. So it's always a bit tricky figuring out what to select for, but the main thing I'm eliminating is things that look a little too boring or anything that I suspect is going to be white-fleshed to the center. So last week, harvested, I guess it was 4 main selections of the kaleidoscope radish that we harvested and or evaluated and harvested and are now sitting in the cold room waiting to be grown for seed next year. And a big thanks to Richard and Tabitha who helped with this root harvest. They've been on tour of seed farms throughout the Northeast USA and then Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Quebec. It was great to have their help with the harvest, but it was also fun to hear about what was happening at the seed farms that they visited. So now a little bit broader news. The Seed Farmer Mentorship is coming very, very soon. I was hoping to have an actual registration date when we recorded this, but I didn't get around to it. So as I'm kind of putting this together, I'm drawing up a calendar and choosing a date that seems like I can actually get things set up for registration. So how about Thursday, November 6th? Doesn't that sound perfect to begin registration for the Seed Farmer Mentorship? If you want to get on the wait list, there's a link in the show notes. The details on the page as I record this are still from last year. They might be more up to date when you hear this, so go and look. And if you're curious, get on that wait list. Next news is there's a webinar called Behind the Packet, Open Pollinated Seeds in Focus on October 28th. This is put on by the Bauta Family Initiative on Canadian Seed Security. Here's what they say on the website about the event. In this webinar, we'll explore the complexities and urgency of open-pollinated seed production today, from the hands-on work of seed growers to the systemic forces shaping seed availability. We'll examine the barriers, possibilities, and values embedded in these seeds, and why their future matters to us all. This is the follow-up to a recent webinar Bauta also organized called Behind the Packet, The Hidden World of Hybrid Seeds. So they did hybrid seeds, now they're doing OP seeds. And I really love that hybrid seeds webinar, and I'm really excited for this next OP one. I hope it's as great, or even half as good would be awesome. So you can sign up for that. Link is in the show notes. And in less seedy news, but maybe this excites you, I just got an email today that there are Wingspan fan-designed bird promo pack for the game Wingspan. And you may or may not play this game, but if you like seeds and you like the natural world and you like board games, then you probably like Wingspan. Anyway, I was really excited to see that, and now I have to decide if I just want to buy all these small fan-designed bird promo packs, especially the 25 Birds of Canada pack. Anyway, that's up to you. Send me any CD news that you might have that you want me to share. And now let's get into today's minisode topic. Today is week 3 of the Season Review Challenge. This is the challenge I like to run every fall to make sure farmers take the time to learn from this season so you can plan on an even better next season. And this year, we're taking a CD focus to the Season Review. If you want to see last year's videos that had a more market grower focus, you can see the link in the show notes to get to those videos. I'll point out that in the season review videos for week 3, this one, the video features Julia Shanks from the Farmer's Office. And this video was actually originally recorded, I think, in 2022 or so. In case there's anything that seems dated, that's why. In the video, Julia Shanks walks you through how to analyze the cost of your different sales channels to see what is more profitable for you. And it's a great exercise. Today, we're not going to go as in-depth into the numbers. So if you really, really want a spreadsheet, go and see that Julia Shanks video listed in the season review videos beneath this episode. So this part of the season review challenge is about reviewing your sales channels. So obviously, it's kind of aiming at folks who are selling seed. If you're not selling seed, and don't want to sell seed, you still might find this interesting. If you're not selling seed, but are considering selling seed, then there's definitely some interest here. And then if you are selling seed, well, jump on in. And there are 2 main sales channels that I think you might be selling seed through. One would be if you have a seed company and are selling seed packs to your clients. So that would be one sales channel. And the other would be if you're growing bulk seed that you're selling to seed companies on contract, maybe on speculation, but bulk seed that's being sold to seed companies. So those are the two sales channels that I'm thinking about in this case. If you have other sales channels that I haven't mentioned, I'd definitely love to know what you're thinking about, and feel free to email me what's on your mind. So if you are selling seeds as seed packs, then what you can review at this time of year, there are many different ways that you can review your sales channel if you're selling seed packs. I think the starting point that I would do was, number one, go to your online store and then go and export the orders from this past year from your online store. You can export them usually as a CSV file or as an Excel spreadsheet, and then open that up and look at the information in it. And I would start off by maybe creating a pivot table. If you don't know about pivot tables, I guess I should link that in the show notes beneath, and remember to do it after the fact. But I have a video about pivot tables. If you've never used one, this is actually an amazing tool, and data from your online store is a fantastic place to go to do this. What you can look at with this data is you can look at your top selling seeds, your bottom selling seeds. And the top selling seeds is especially important to know because you want to make sure you have those in stock. And the lower selling seeds is also important to know because you got to figure out if it's worth your keeping them around. Now, if you have a stock of seed that is still germinating well, then doing a germ test every year and then packing up a certain amount of packs is fine until that lot winds down. But you do want to evaluate, do you want to grow that seed again? Is it significant for any reason that you want to steward that seed for another generation in the future? And if you don't, that might be something that you phase out so you have room to bring in a new variety into your fields. So that's one thing to look at, is just what's popular and what's not. Another thing that you can look at is the dollar value of the seeds in those packs. To do this, you would figure out the cost per pound or per gram or per kilogram, however you think about seeds, and then multiply by the weight of the seed pack. So if it's a cost per gram, then times the grams per pack gives you the dollar value of the seed that's actually packed in that pack. If you sell seed on contract or buy seed in, you probably have an idea where some of those prices are. If that's something that you don't do already, and you have no idea what the bulk value of your seed is, then this is actually something that is really a good exercise to do right now. And I would recommend that you go and get some of the common seed catalogs that market growers are ordering from. Johnny's and High Mowing are pretty common here in Quebec, even though they're U.S. companies. William Dam, Vessey's also Canadian companies that market gardeners order from that offer bulk seed. And look at how that seed is priced and figure out what you think your seed is worth in function of seeing those prices on a bulk value. And so make an estimation, multiply by the seed per pack, and then you can see what it costs or what the value is of the seed in those packs. And this is something else that might surprise you. That you're going to see that some seed packs have 10 cents of seed in them, and you might see some seed packs that have over $1 of seed in them. And that's something that is interesting to look at, especially for the really popular items. Maybe your number one seller actually has a lot of seed value in it. And now, I'm not going to give you anything prescriptive of what to do with that, but just knowing that what seed costs you more than other seed in terms of the value in it is an interesting thing. Something you can also do to figure out the value of the seed is you could do a cost of production budget for some of your crops, and that'll also give you an idea of how to cost that seed. So those are a few different ways to get a bulk price, and then from there you just have more information when you're reviewing what you want to do in the future. Maybe number of seeds per pack, maybe pricing your seeds and maybe figuring out what seeds you want to push more in your marketing strategies and what seeds you want to maybe phase out or push less. And I guess that is some suggestions I'm giving you that I said I wasn't going to give you any. But those are some different things you can think about with looking at the dollar value. So that's two things you can look at for seed pack sales. Now, if you're doing contract seed or other kind of bulk seed sales, you can also evaluate that. And I guess a first point would be to look at, were you successful in growing the crops to fulfill those contracts? Is it a good mix for your farm, And are you generating enough revenue? Would you want to be generating more revenue from this sales channel? So that's the first thing to think about. The next thing that I would look at, you can look at the total yield you get from an area in kilograms or in pounds, and then multiply that by the dollars per pound or dollars per kilogram to get an idea how much it's generating per area on your farm. Now, it's important to remember this is not a profit analysis. This is just a gross sales per area or a potential gross sales per area. But that's something to definitely think about when you're analyzing your bulk sales, is what crops are generating more or less from your field. And you might want to tweak your crop mix towards the crops that generate more if you have that potential with your seed contract clients. And I guess you can also even do this exercise with the seeds that you're producing for your packet sales. I didn't think about that when I first started doing this episode, but yeah, you can do that too and see which ones are generating $20,000 an acre and which ones are generating $200,000 an acre. And it's always fun to tweak that mix higher as much as you can and within what's your control. So those are a couple different reflections of what you might do to review your sales channels, your CD sales channels this year. Now, after you do crunch these numbers, here are some things I think you're going to see. First off, I think you're going to find that squash is very expensive. Squash seed packs have a lot of dollar value of seeds in them. And that's something that we've definitely seen on our farm. And this has actually had us move away from a lot of Maxima squashes for our seed packs, especially that we're putting on seed racks. Because when we put a pack on a seed rack, we might only be getting, $2.50 or $3 a pack. And it's not unusual to have like $1.20 of just seed cost in that pack. And sure, it leaves like $1.80 left over, but you still have to cover the seed pack itself. You got to cover the labor. You got to cover all your overhead. You got to cover your marketing, maybe shipping. All those things need to be covered in there. So that's one thing that squash is definitely one that we've taken a real strong look at as to what varieties we'll offer and to whether we'll sell them in seed racks or whether we're going to sell them on our online store. Now, there's an added wrinkle for squash for us in that we don't have a lot of isolation distance on our farm. So it is easy for us to phase out squash or just grow varieties that, have a lot of seed per fruit or have smaller seed, which means that there's less dollars of seed in the pack. And then we'll contract a little bit less of other varieties. If you have a real facility for growing squash and have all the isolation distance, you might have a little bit of a different analysis than us. But it is interesting to see that squash is usually some of the more expensive seeds in your pack. Now, tied in with that spatial analysis, if you have a bad seed yield, you might be generating more like $20,000 of seeds per acre, which is not the end of the world, but if you're just growing 1 acre of crop, it's hard to make a living off of that. And then other squashies might have a really great yield and be generating more $50,000 or $60,000 an acre. And that's something that's definitely more exciting to grow and more exciting to put in a seed pack. And I do recognize that as I'm saying this, I am not thinking about any of the reasons that you might be stewarding a specific variety? Are you selecting it for better eating quality, better storage quality? Is it something that has a historical value to you, a cultural value to you? Is it just something that you want to make sure is available in the marketplace? Is it something that's a really important squash on your farm that you want to be offering the actual fruit? Those are all reasons that you might be growing your squash that I am not even thinking about when I'm doing this analysis. And so definitely look at those other lenses too when you're doing this. Another crop family that I think you're going to see has a high dollars of seed per pack is probably beans and peas. And what's also interesting is they're heavier seed to ship, so that can have an impact too. But they're also so popular with so many gardeners that it can be really tough to phase those out. I am not recommending that you phase them out, but it is tough to not have beans and peas in your seed catalog. So this is something that maybe is a bit of a loss leader that you need to just recognize in your mix. And with beans and peas, in addition to being expensive seed in the pack, they're almost always going to be lower on the price per area compared to almost any other seed. So if you can get 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of beans or peas out of an acre. Now, I don't think you're actually growing that many pounds per acre, but if you were to extrapolate from the area that you do up into an acre, it's probably in the maybe 1,500 to 3,000 pounds an acre. And so if you're selling those at the equivalent of $15 a pound, then 2,000 pounds comes to 30,000 an acre. And that's probably a decent yield. That's not the best dollars per acre, not the worst, but if you're only getting 1,000 pounds, you're not even making that much. So that's something I think you'll see. Squash and beans, there's some interesting economics to think about. You'll probably see that something like tomatoes might be generating for you $100,000 or $200,000 an acre at bulk seed prices, and that maybe you have 25 cents of seed in the pack. Those are much more interesting from a sales perspective, and it's something to be aware of. So those are a few insights that you might get. Your numbers might be different. I bet you'll find it interesting no matter what you do, what insights you get out of this. If you want more tools to look at your seed from a sales perspective, you might want to pick up the Seed Farmer book that New Society published that I wrote last summer. It touches both on selling seeds in packs and selling bulk seeds on contract. And if you're listening to this podcast, I can't imagine you wouldn't enjoy this book. So enough about the Seed Farmer book for now. Now it's your turn to look at your sales channels and figure out what's working for you. And I'll be back soon for part 4 of the Season Review Challenge. And that's another episode of the Seed Farmer Podcast. If you like these season review episodes, please let me know. There's a couple more left, and then we'll get back to more seedy, less spreadsheety episodes. Thank you to Safié Sedalton for the theme music. You can hear more of their music at safiesedalton.com. Thank you to Molly Brisebois for editing this episodes, and to listening to me when I'm particularly rambly and cutting out the good stuff and sharing it with you. And thank you so much for listening. You can find more seed growing resources on my blog at seedgrowers.farm. While you're there, you can subscribe to my newsletter full of seed growing, crop planning, and farm spreadsheets. You can also find out where to order a copy of my book, The Seed Farmer: A Complete Guide to Growing, Using, and Selling Your Own Seed. And you can support the podcast at spreadsheet.farm/support podcast. Link is in the show notes. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, now's the time. You wouldn't want to miss the next episode. Until then, happy farming.